Here we
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah.
This should work. All right, welcome into the preseason slash week one show for the 2021 season of the HFFL. This is, of course, Wonku and Dustin Undisputed. That means I'm your host, Wonku, as well as our co host, Dustin.
Yo.
And we've got our first guest, Diaz, who has come on as part of a tradition as we get to see some of his simulations for the draft.
Good to be here.
Thanks, as always, Diaz, for sharing some of your insights into what you thought would happen, and I think it's part of the fun where we get to compare some of what you had versus what actually happened in the auction draft. I guess first off, just a quick question. Do you do this with Kimmel? Like, is this a joint effort that you guys put together, or like how? If you can share, how you do this, what is going on really?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's slow, of course, when you do it alone. If you have a partner, then it's extra slow because you end up discussing things. So we
Somebody
usually
clip the inappropriate part of that, and can you post it on the Discord later? Thanks. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
usually we do one or two together every off season.
One or two full ones like this.
Yeah, we I don't think we ever get to the every player, but yeah, like this in depth.
Wow. Okay.
Is it like a session thing where you guys like get on the phone for X hours and like kind of just pound it out, or is it like trickling in like over the course of a few days where you're just like, oh yeah, I think like this might be a player that this team goes for, or like yeah, like is it like more like all concentrated at once, or is it kind of like just slowly you're just exchanging ideas and like filling it out on a longer
Yeah,
term basis?
we do it all at once. I think part of it is just for the convenience, but also there's the benefit of it's easier to forget if you're spreading it out. And
Mm.
a big part of this is you kind of have to split your brain into different people and say, well, Jay's team has this guy, but Chu's team has this guy, so who would want to bid more? And then would a third team want to get involved? So it's very unscientific, but it's I think better to do it all at once.
I just have to say I have a lot of respect for you in terms of doing this because I remember even for this season in my preparation I tried to do this, but it takes way too long. I gave up like after two teams. I'm like, okay, yeah, this isn't gonna work. So yeah, this is incredible what you do and the amount of time and effort that you spend on this. It's amazing.
Well, you're very kind. It's fun. So
Yeah,
some people are really good, like you guys are really good at breaking down film. That's something that I'm not as good at, but I like doing this, and
sure,
it helps me.
absolutely.
For
So
sure. I know.
yeah,
I think yeah, like value of like predicting stuff is also important, but I think also having fun while you're doing this is a lot of fun. And I think that's probably one of the biggest benefits of having a co-owner, like having someone to, you know, enjoy and like have motivation for seeing your own team do well as much as you do. So I definitely get like why you would go through all this effort and like how it wouldn't even feel like work when you're doing it with someone, just because it's, I mean, it's someone you're a friend of and like like close to. So this really probably doesn't feel like as much work as maybe the solo people are thinking of, especially because you're bouncing ideas and talking about like stuff that you're both interested in.
yeah, that's a great point. That's a fantastic point. I think alone it's much harder. Um, so yeah, let's. Why don't we just go right in? So Diaz, do you want to talk a little bit about what you've got here with this one simulation?
Yeah, so the what will probably stand out to people is that I had the top players going for a lot more than they ended up going for, except for Christian McCaffrey, who I mocked to Warren in this case, and in many cases, obviously not knowing that he would never pay $100 for Christian McCaffrey, as we all know now. Um, but that was something that really stood out to me in my prep that, there were more players being kept than ever. There was less money on the board than ever. But the recent trends that we had seen were that the value of running backs had been increasing, while the value of other players had been decreasing or remaining static. And so it was really hard for me to grapple with the idea that people clearly value running backs, or historically, very recently, have valued running backs in this league, with the fact that they would have less money to spend at the auction. I predicted that people would maybe give the running backs a 10% discount, but they ended up giving them really like a 20% or more discount in a lot of cases. So I was surprised by that.
Yeah, so let's hold off on that. I thought 1 second. So, did you do this before the keepers were designated? So, did you even predict our keeper designations as well? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, I predict the keeper designations. Obviously, I was not perfect. I have DJ Shark on there. Or I took Tua off. So I think this was the day after I talked to Warren, and he mentioned that he was not planning to keep Tua, but I didn't expect you to cut Shark, for instance. So I'm not always perfect, but most of the time, a lot of them are really straightforward, which who's going to get kept, and people will tell you too if you ask.
Right, right. So yeah, first of all, that's one of the things that stands out, and then the second is what you're saying, right? So, I think you really did a great job again with this simulation, where a lot of the prices came out pretty close. I mean, it's not perfect, but that's really obvious. It's very hard to do that, but I think a lot of the prices are correct. A lot of the players that ended up on teams are correct. So I think, again, overall, really a wonderful job. Dustin, you want to start with any thoughts, comments?
Yeah, no, on that, like, yeah, I think doing this simulation probably would have been hardest last year and this year, and then after this year, I think you're going to have a better idea of what to expect, because I think there was a lot of transitioning in a lot of teams' strategies, and that's probably why you thought running back was going to stay similarly high. But there are some moving pieces now that like more and more of the old type of contracts get transitioned out. There were like slightly fewer, running backs in the top tier out there, and those are all like factors that can even, slightly affect the price of the top tier of running backs. So I'm not surprised that you were probably, overshot on some of the running back prices, and that's definitely something that I was really interested in. I could have seen it going either way, but like Wonky said, I do see a lot of accuracy, a lot of generally, in the right ballpark of prices and valuing. And then I definitely think he definitely has some players going to owners that have definitely shown a little bit of interest. So I like to see the ones that I can like pick out and be like, oh yeah, I definitely could have seen like this guy going hard for this type of player. But
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, really interesting.
personally for me, when I look at this like for my team, for example, he nailed all of the players that are on my team. Ben
Well,
Roethlisberger.
you are more transparent than
That's true.
some, I would say.
That's true. Alvin Kamara is on there.
Mhm.
Will Fuller he
Yep.
got on my bench. Like it's just pretty good.
Really, really interesting. Also, was I know John did say he was going to go for Joe Mixon, and believe it or not, this simulation at least somewhat did believe that intention. Whereas I was like, I don't think he's really targeting that at all. But yeah, interested. How did you and Kimmel discuss like that specific point after he said I'm really going for Mixon? Did you talk about whether it could be a smokescreen? Did you talk about he's you know thinking like 3 steps ahead, and it's actually not a smokescreen? Like, I'm just curious to what the discussion was about that pick.
Well, it's a good question because ultimately the value to me of an exercise like this isn't necessarily which specific player goes to
Yeah,
which
that's true.
team,
Right.
Yeah.
but right where the values are allocated. So if it was Mixon or Zeke, for the same or general amount of money, the important thing is that we can understand what we would do if that type of player were off the board at that point for that value.
Hmm.
But yeah, very frequently, because John had very few open starting spots, and he had a good amount of money because his keepers were relatively inexpensive. He would very frequently get one of the top four running backs because Those are, where we expected the money to go. We also mocked Kelsey to him frequently because he had an open tight end spot and a lot
Mhm.
of money.
Right. Plus, he has both QBs accounted for, right? He's got Hurts and Trevor Lawrence. He may still go for a top tier QB, but it would be kind of strange to do that. So, yeah, that all makes sense. So, I'm curious, when you do all these projections, all these simulations, what do you get in terms of your strategy? If you wanted to share a little bit about that. And yeah, I can talk a little bit about what I thought about this year as well. But go ahead, Diaz.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the I think the biggest question in any auction is I want to get this player. I want to draft Calvin Ridley. I think he's going to have a great year.
Right.
If I spend this much money on Calvin Ridley, what's the rest of my team going to look like?
Yep.
And what people frequently do, I think, is they can budget it out based on what they expect for maybe a single team. But you really get to see a lot of interesting patterns if you budget it out for all the entire league. So, for instance, I said I think people will still be willing to pay for running backs. So, what's the rest of the draft going to look like? And what I found was there ended up being a lot of value later in the draft because people just ran out of money. I mean, we see really preposterous values here that didn't come to pass, like um, the Odell Beckham 11. Although in the real draft, he was very cheap too, right?
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like the Robert Woods 18, Tyler Lockett 15. Like those didn't come out that way because
Mhm.
that money wasn't spent up front. So it matriculated down to that like
Mhm.
third, second tier. But ultimately, what it did reveal, and what I kept saying to Danny was, if I'm wrong, if these players don't go for these high prices, then we want to get one of them because the value is less likely to appear later in the draft. And so what we saw was there was value later in the draft in the $30 receiver tier that a few people have been talking about that included players like Amari Cooper and Chris Godwin. But there was also value up towards the beginning of the draft, a $66, the $60 range for potentially a top five running back like Ezekiel Elliott or Joe Mixon. That seems like a good value. I think that Travis Kelce, $57, seems like a good value. Everything could change, but um, in doing this exercise, when we started to see, Mixon was the very first player nominated and went for a lot less than I thought he would. I said, okay, I have to be prepared to draft one of the top 10 players like on the board because I think that there's going to be some value there. And I think that is what happened. And the people did well to draft those players.
Yeah, I think you're pretty much spot on. You've summarized it perfectly. That's what I was thinking exactly. There was either two worlds that could happen, right? It was exactly what you said. Either everyone is going to continue doing what they were doing and just spend very high for the first couple picks, or there's going to be a discount because of the value that was perceived. And actually, I think this started to happen last year where, at least I noticed at the end of the draft, there was a lot of value at that point, and not everyone could participate in that because a lot of the money was used up early. And so coming into this year, I definitely thought about that, preparing for this year. And so again, those two worlds where the high end talent, how much will they go for? And then I had these two different strategies depending on what the general feel was right off the bat. And I think it was very quick to see that people have adjusted and lowered the value of those top talents, and that's why I went for Alvin Kamara really early for that $70 price tag. And otherwise, I think I would have done a different strategy that would have been, filling out my roster with more of the mid tier type of talent, but still, giving myself a good chance to compete. But I think, that was the main two thoughts that I had going into this season. Dustin, do you have any thoughts further on that?
Yeah, I think interestingly, like what whole Diaz and Kimmeldorf's whole strategy and their thinking is, I think a lot of teams do exactly what you're talking about, just not out all on like a spreadsheet where they, assign names and exact values. But I do think, talking to a lot of people and from my draft process, especially from last year, we do that kind of like, theorizing and like thinking about, okay, like where's the money going? Where's, the best values? Like where do we want to spend our money? Where are teams, hitting harder than, what we were expecting? And if it's not there, then what are we going to do? Like, I think a lot of teams do have that kind of thought process that you just outlined. I just, you're especially thorough with how you put it all out on, a spreadsheet, and you have like names and numbers specifically.
Right.
But I do think it's interesting how I think a majority of our league does think in that way, either, subconsciously where they're doing all the math in their head, or whether they're actually like, talking it out to be a little bit more specific, although not as specific as this. Like I do think that's the level of, thinking that goes into our league now. And I think probably honestly all 10 teams are thinking this way, if not, the vast majority. So
Yes, I think everyone did really well to adjust to this. And in fact, I could tell some people knew about this when they made their keeper designations. One example is Jay. I knew he knew right from when he set his keepers, because he didn't fill it all out. And I knew he had an idea that he had to keep his auction budget flexible so that he could make the right moves when the time comes for the draft, and he wasn't going to just fill out the 7 years just because he could, right? And it's the same thing that I did too. I cut DJ Chark. I like DJ Chark. I mean, I would love to have him on my team, and if it was a better value, I would still have him on my team. But unfortunately, I did.
damn,
I did
that sounds like you're saying DJ Shark is a bad value.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I had to increase my auction budget flexibility at the price of 28. I just couldn't do it. Especially when you compare that to what I ended up getting, Chris Godwin at 30, or there was someone else at 30. I think Mike Evans at around that price. So
Yeah, Godwin and Evans, that's great.
exactly. So when you think about it like that, it's just unfortunate, but it had to be done for this year. And so, yeah, things always continue to evolve, and we'll see. Again, that's my favorite phrase, but we'll see again for next year. How people adapt to this now, the new landscape of how the draft looks like. Is there, further theorizing that could be done? I don't know, but we'll see.
Love it.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys don't have any other comments, we can look straight at the your actual team, Diaz.
Yeah, let's see
Cool.
how your strategy actually played out.
Not just your simulation. So, just to start off, I think you have one of the strongest teams in the league, and I think you did a great job in the offseason. That, of course, starts from last season, where you acquired a lot of really great, keepable talent. And then in the offseason, you continue to do that, trading for players like Matthew Stafford and Dak Prescott and so on. And then carrying them into the auction draft, you, I think, had a great strategy. But if you wanted to continue, talking about what you guys specifically did in the draft, feel free to do so.
Yeah, sure. A lot of the allure of picking up two quarterbacks is that it simplifies your draft.
Yeah.
If you have one position where
Definitely.
you don't have to worry about it, and in some cases I didn't want to be in that position because I wanted to be able to take advantage of value, but my feeling was that I wasn't confident that there would be value on players that I liked at quarterback, and so we wanted to lock that up. That meant that the main position we were looking for was tight end, because we felt there's two tight ends who we really want to be, who we feel we can rely on in the draft, and then others who have some upside, some breakout potential, but obviously we did not manage that very well last season. So we said, let's try to take a different tack if we can, and we were able to afford it in Travis Kelce. I had kind of budgeted $60 to $70 for one top tier player, and so Travis Kelce, we were able to bid on him and get it for 57. And so we said, okay, then we have $30 more for two flex, like $40 for two flex spots. One of them was Amari Cooper, who was also a target of ours, because we felt that he was potentially being undervalued because CeeDee Lamb is a very popular young ascending player, sort of overshadowing Amari Cooper, who's excellent in his own right. And then we just had to fill the flex. Obviously, so far it doesn't look like we've done a very good job of doing that. Ronald Jones had a very bad game on Thursday night. But we went after a lot of high upside wide receivers because I feel like our starting wide receivers are pretty reliable. So we don't need any of these guys to pan out, but I'm hoping that one of them shows something on Sunday so that we can try them out in the flex next week.
Yeah, I think you did a fantastic job. I mean, the Kelsey pick was really great. That's probably a bargain even with the new prices. I think that's still pretty good. And then, yeah, Amari Cooper in his first game looked really, really great. I know we can talk with a little bit of data from the first game, but even without that, I think Amari Cooper, as you said, has been overlooked because of CeeDee Lamb being kind of like the rising star there. But any other comments, Dustin?
Yeah, no, I pretty much agree with everything. I am a little bit more worried about that flex spot than probably either one of you seem to be, but you know, one spot that you have to fix over the course of the season is really honestly the best case you can get in a league this competitive. No one's going to come in with every spot locked down looking, you know, like roses. So while, yeah, like Ronald Jones didn't have a good game and, Sony Michel's the only backup running back outside of the top three on the roster, I do think over the course of the season, so many injuries happen, so many, trades will happen that I'm not too concerned about that spot long term. And yeah, I was actually surprised that Kelsey went for 57. He went for more last year, and he's coming off a stronger season than he was coming into last auction. But I think a lot of teams might have been like, oh, I'm not going to have the money for, what Kelsey's going to cost. And they kind of tunnel vision elsewhere, which kind of led to him falling for $57, which I think is a pretty good bargain.
Right,
So
right.
really, really sharp to be ready to get that, and leaving every possibility open going into a draft or preparing for multiple ones. That's really where it shines, where you see a team that is flexible enough to either jump on a Kelsey if he's the right price. And I'm sure you had a great backup plan if he did end up going for like 70 or 80 or something ridiculous. So I think the preparation really does pay off, and we're seeing it here.
Absolutely. If you were to think about what your team's weaknesses are, Diaz, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, the running back is definitely a factor. Dustin called it out in the power rankings, and it's hard to argue with that. The first two running backs, should be reliable, but injuries always happen, and if that should happen, it's going to be really difficult to find a reliable RB2. I'm optimistic about what Sony Michel can do, but I think that it's a fair chance that we'll be in the market, and hopefully we'll have some surplus value at wide receiver that we could turn into a running back should we face that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, I like what you've done with your bench. I'm a little biased because a lot of those players are they used to be Kingfishers a year or two ago. Paris Campbell, Gabriel Davis, Brian Edwards. So I mean, those could potentially be people you could put into your flex position. And then yeah, Sony Michel. We don't know what he's going to do. Nobody knows except for maybe Sean McVay. And we'll see. We'll see what he can do and how exactly that workload will be shared between Darrell Henderson and him. It's going to be really interesting. I think, that could potentially be a stack for you with Matthew Stafford if he, takes up the pass catching role for that offense. And that offense should be good, I think. But in any case, oh, and you have Cooper Kupp too. So you're really in on the Rams.
Yeah, that was one thing about Henderson is we didn't want to be too locked in on any one team and have to rely on them week in and week out. Obviously, if it's a team, the Rams is a good choice, but mainly I didn't feel that he would be trusted. I don't think that the Rams like him, Darrell Henderson,
Mm-hmm.
but it should be. Another big thing was I'm excited to watch the teams that my players are on. Cowboys games.
Ah,
Yeah, I get to watch the Chiefs games and actually be invested. It's not always easy to do that. Rams games, that's fun to watch.
Seattle.
Versus in the past. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you've got a lot of Jets on your team because you had value, there was value there, or a bunch of Jags or something like that. Not to pick on you, because I know
It's
you've
fine.
rostered a lot
It's
of
fine.
Jaguars, but like, I was watching like a lot of Patriots and Jaguars games last year because I had Cam Newton and Gardner Minshew. It's not the same as watching maybe the Cowboys or the Rams, who are always on prime time too, so it's easier to watch them.
Right, right. Very true. Um, no, yeah, you have players from a lot of the sexy offenses, right? Like I think we named them all. The only uh, team that
Except the running backs, really.
yeah, I was about to say the
Yeah.
the Steelers and the Bears, I think, are the ones where you might not want to watch all the time, but who knows? I think especially with the Steelers, I think they could be better than we think. Maybe I know the offensive line is an issue. It is an issue for sure, but yeah, I mean it still could be okay because they do have some weapons, and David Montgomery is the topic of a lot of you know
I mean, he's a dynamic
discussion.
playmaker. What more can you say?
Exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, why don't we just look at my team as well? And we don't have to look at Dustin's team because he doesn't even have a team anymore. But anyways, yeah, this let's take a look at my team. So, for me, as I said, I think going into the draft, I knew I wanted a top talent if he was affordable, and that was Alvin Kamara. Especially as I said on the Discord too, I wasn't actually thinking about Kamara as someone who would be available. I thought I thought Ken was gonna franchise tag him for sure. So just a day or two before the actual auction draft, I thought about it, changed my strategy to accommodate Alvin Kamara being available, going after him, and then really wanted to hammer some of those more affordable wide receivers at the $30 range. So that included Evans, Godwin that I ended up with, but Amari Cooper also would have been great. Tyler Lockett also would have been great. There's probably a couple more names that I forgot, but all of them would have been great. I think it didn't matter for me. I think just getting a couple of those to fill out my roster and give me a really good wide receiver core was really the goal. And as I said on the Discord, I really wanted to make sure I'm not starting Jamar Chase. I want to make sure that my flex is good enough so that I don't have to worry about him being there. Just have him develop on my bench. Start by Judy. Start a Chenault, which I think is going to be fine for at least the first week and moving forward. And so really, I think if you guys, I mean, you guys have been playing fantasy with me for a long time now, and I think a lot of my teams that I draft, there's a very clear strength and a very clear weakness, and I think I've achieved that yet again. That's what I always try to do, and so yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking in terms of building this roster. I'll let either of you guys comment.
I'll go first. Yeah, like you definitely have that strategy, and I know we just mentioned it on Diaz's team, but you did have a little bit of running back like weakness beyond your top one or two, and we're seeing what I meant by like, oh, guys will emerge, guys will get injured, and Tyson Williams all of a sudden looks like, a much more palatable option for a running back two than what you had probably 2 days ago, before the Gus Edwards injury. So, if maybe, I think both of you guys went in and said, if my third running back is not really a lockdown, proven piece, that's something I can work on during the season, and I'll prefer to be strong in other areas. And I think this team is definitely very strong in wide receiver. Lamar Jackson, if he has a bounce back year, I think could again, carry a team for weeks at a time. So, yeah, I mean, I like this team a lot more post Gus Edwards injury, and that's fair to you because honestly, the only reason I dinged it was because of Dobbins' injury and Cam Akers' injury. Those are two really, really big losses for any team to really absorb, and I just wasn't sure if your running back depth was good beyond Kamara, but you are resourceful. I think you will figure it out. You're already figuring it out by having a guy like Tyson Williams on your roster. And I know you just traded for Ty Johnson, and maybe he's a guy that is a hot commodity in a week or two after we see what the Jets' offense and more importantly the Jets' run game looks like. So, yeah, I mean, I know you were a little bit disappointed that we ranked you low, but it is a really close field for me between 3 to 10, and I think recent developments would probably not have you in that bottom spot anymore. So
Okay,
this is definitely a team that I could see, making a good playoff run.
just to clarify, I mean, I was disappointed, but also I do want to hear what you guys think because it is important to hear exactly just to see what the what I was thinking as my weakness is actually what is perceived a weakness, right? So just wanted to make sure as well. But anyways, yeah, Diaz.
Let me ask you a question, Wonku. How do you feel about Mike Evans? I can't remember if he's a guy who you frequently owned. He doesn't strike me as the type of player that I would expect to see on your team. Was this a value play, or was that someone you were looking to get in the draft?
It's more of a value play. He is definitely not someone I target. He's I think the first time I've owned him, I think ever.
He's wide receiver Joho. He
He
gets
is.
those 1 yard touchdowns and ends up like 20 yards and like 2 touchdowns, and you're like, I guess that was a good fantasy day at least.
Yeah, I think so. There's two things. I think I really like the offense. I think Tampa Bay is a great offense, which I think we've seen from week one. But on
Yeah.
top of that, I think having this is another thing that I think a lot of my teams have is the guy, the boom bust guy, right? I have one of those usually in my lineup. Tyler Lockett was that guy 2 years ago. I had Amari Cooper in one of those years where he does that. Like I think even
Yep,
though
yep.
they're frustrating, they're sometimes useful for winning a week that you shouldn't have won just because you have
hmm
that guy in your lineup. I think Mike Evans will play that role for me this year, hopefully. Whereas someone like Godwin, that's someone I can trust to perform every week, right? I think he's going to score anywhere from 8 to 15, or I guess he scored more than 15 this week. But anyways, like
Yeah.
he'll score a very predictable range of outcomes for every week, whereas Evans can get me like 40 and then give me four. And that's
Yep.
fine. And I'm okay with that. That I need someone like that from time to time. So that's kind of the thought process there.
Yeah, with a lot of people wondering what the Tampa Bay offense would look like with all three of their receivers healthy, which we rarely got to see last season. I think that we saw last night that Godwin could be the top target getter, which I believe was what happened last season in the few games where all three of those players were healthy. So
Right.
I think that's a very savvy pickup. No surprise, Wonku is a noted Chris Godwin enthusiast.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that the thing for me that stands out as well is QB2.
Right.
We just mentioned that Pittsburgh may struggle this season. I thought that Roethlisberger looked pretty good in the preseason, but you know that offense looked pretty bad at the end of last year, and behind him is Mac Jones, who's a bit of an unknown. So
I think Mac
uh,
Jones is the
yeah.
QB2 here.
Woo! Damn. Would you start Mac
All in on
Jones?
Mac.
Would you start Mac Jones week one?
I think very shortly you will be starting him.
Ooh. So, I mean, I'm not going to rule that out, but my plan right now is definitely to have Big Ben be the QB2 for at least
Yeah,
a
no,
couple
he's
weeks.
a perfect
Yeah,
placeholder.
he's a
Like
placeholder.
you know he's not going to kill you during the weeks you are starting him, and if Mac Jones is completely unstartable, then you at least have like a passable quarterback standing in there. But if I'm you, I'm thinking Mac Jones can take the job pretty soon. Um, just to
Yeah,
add on, I
yeah,
think for me, uh, just this is a tangent, but I think Lamar Jackson does have to kind of get back to
yes,
closer to his
yes.
2019. I think we could talk about Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Kamara. Those are like great pieces, and I think you're very well positioned. But I think the difference between this team being elite and this team being just one of the teams is Lamar Jackson. If we see 2019 Lamar Jackson, this is probably a championship caliber team. If we see last year Lamar Jackson, which was a little bit less exciting, then that's probably where I have you pegged like somewhere in the group of the 3 to 10. So it'll be really interesting to see if I'm sure he heard all the criticism he got last year, and he definitely did flash moments of still being that guy. We'll see if he comes out hungrier for the stats and to put up some big numbers again.
Yeah, I think realistically, he's probably going to be somewhere in between. But you're right. I think with the
Yeah.
price tag that he has, he needs to really be a surefire, top. I would say like top three QB in the league, right? He
Yeah.
needs to be really, really good
Yeah.
for my team to have a realistic chance at winning the championship, which is obviously the goal for every team. So yeah, a lot of it rests on Lamar's shoulder. I hope he can do it. I believe in him. I do hope that he did get the vaccine. That's my one. God, man, yeah. But if he did go and get the vaccine and stop catching COVID with his really bad immune system, then I think it's going to be okay for him. Uh,
Question marks, immune system.
yeah, seriously, God, this guy. Um, but yeah, um, yeah. I mean, if there's no other things here, we can look at some of the waiver wire. It's kind of nice to. We'll revisit your favorite great kills later, Dustin, when it's time for Matt to come on. So first of all, with the waiver wire, I think it was a little bit strange just because the timing was was weird. Like at 4 o'clock, where everyone was like, "What happened? What happened to the?"
Yeah, Fantrax's usually so prompt about it that
Yeah, that was so
it was
strange.
surprising. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was one thing that was strange, and then the second thing was, of course, my my adventures with the waiver wire, where I had to I lost an RNG, a 50-50, where
Wonky learned a lesson.
I learned a lesson. Yeah, that was good though. That was really really good. I mean,
Yeah.
for the brief moments where I didn't know what was going on, it was frustrating for sure. But then once it was explained to me what happened, then it was a relief that I could make sure to never do that again unless I want to, which I might in the future. We'll see. But in any case, basically, I set two different groups, and they both had the same priority, which then led to a 50-50 RNG call that resulted in me getting Trenton Cannon. That was in despite my bid for Ty Johnson, who I think is going to be a big player in the Jets backfield. So I bid 7. I ended up getting him by trading Will Fuller. So I guess starting from there, what are your thoughts on Ty Johnson? And then on top of that, and any other comments on that whole whole strange scenario as well as the trade?
Yeah, I definitely had a bid in on Ty Johnson. I think we're on the same wavelength. The Jets' backfield is way open. Um, he may be the best player at this moment in there. Michael Carter is no slouch, but Ty Johnson played very well last season, and I think that if he's able to, to get a good share of the carries there, 50, 60%. He's a viable flex, and that's what you're looking for, Wonky. You're playing this anchor RB strategy, and those are the kind of players you want to have on your team.
Absolutely. Dustin, any other things you'd
Yeah.
like to add?
So yeah, I did actually advise Matt on waiver strategy a little bit this week, and I have to say Ty Johnson was on our
Ooh.
list as well. So it is interesting that he went for the price he actually went, because I did think some teams were looking for running back depth and would put in bigger bids. So it was surprising how much he went for. But in terms of the trade, I know you're deeper at wide receiver, but I probably like it more for Oakland. I do think Will Fuller, when he does get healthy, and if he's not getting suspended for roids, he can really be a very very viable wide receiver option, especially when we get to bye weeks. So it does suck that you had to pay an extra price to acquire him, other than just free agent budget. But that don't have a problem with it, especially with the way your team is built. Definitely more in need of the running back help than the wide receiver help. So
Yep. Yeah, you
it's
guys
fine with that.
covered it pretty well. Um, anything of note that stood out? I mean, I guess starting with if you were advising great kills this week, Dustin, you really liked Michael Gallup, I guess, for 7.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he would go for more too, because last year Dak was supporting 3 really good wide receivers every week, especially with the volume that he has. And I think in the first half yesterday he had 40 yards on like 7 targets, which is a decent half for a wide receiver three on a team. So I thought teams would be in on that kind of depth option, especially because if Cooper misses a game, or if CD misses a game, all of a sudden this is like a very very attractive startable option, I think. But he obviously got hurt, so it doesn't look as smart now. But I did think he was the best available wide receiver option on the waiver. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely that was a statement made for that $7 bid. Diaz, thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, I sort of take the opposite tack. I don't try to target players like Gallup who maybe um, in order, I think, to stand out, you need to be game scripted or have another player maybe get hurt. For example, I targeted Paris Campbell in this case because there's not really anyone in front of him. He's side by side, with the other receiver there, and it's not necessarily that something has to fall right. It's just that they have to use him in a certain way. We've seen the way that
Mm.
Michael Gallup is used. I think that he's valuable. He's useful as a bye week fill-in, assuming his health. But I was surprised to see the $7 bid. It's immediately after the auction, you kind of have an idea of how much everyone values all the players. If they wanted them, they would have gone and gotten them in the auction. So,
Hmm.
uh, you know, obviously the strategy made sense. Michael Gallup had a good game before he got hurt. But this early in the season, especially before week one, I'm looking for a player who, if they have a good performance, it's something that would indicate like a drastic change in their value because they're breaking out. I don't think Michael Gallup can break out without, as you mentioned, an injury.
Oh, so
Well, I
so
disagree though, because especially before Dak got hurt, he was actually already kind of broken out. If you think Dallas is as good of an offense as a lot of people do think they are, um, three wide receivers is not a huge stretch for an offense to support at all. And last year, even before anyone else got hurt or anything, Gallup was a top 20 wide receiver, and then Dak got hurt, and obviously he became irrelevant. But so did most of the Cowboys offense. So I kind of disagree that it's just like injury that or a change in role that's gonna let him be relevant. I think the Cowboys are gonna throw a good amount, and there's enough volume for Gallup to be even startable even without like an injury in front of him.
I was about to say, Diaz, you're a hater, huh? You're a Gallup hater.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
That's
mean, I look at the best offenses in
yeah.
in the league, and their third passing option is not usually a player that I'd be comfortable starting. I can't, I don't feel that way about the Rams. I don't feel that way about the Chiefs, and therefore
Hmm.
I really don't feel that way about the
Wow.
Cowboys.
I was gonna say I like the Van Jefferson pickup because I do think the Rams could support three wide receivers if Jared Goff in that I know it's a different offense with a different offensive line and different running back, but if that offense back when with Jared Goff could support Cup, Cooks, and Woods as really, really good options, I think there's room for Van Jefferson to sneak in too. So I was gonna say I really like that pickup, but it seems that Diaz would disagree if you don't think the Rams can support three guys either. Like I think the top offenses are gonna support three guys. So if maybe the Cowboys aren't a top passing offense this year, but for what Gallup did last year when Dak was healthy, you can say maybe 7 is an overpay, but I think he was certainly a step above a Paris Campbell or some other guys.
Yeah, the other thing I'll add is that there are even with top offenses, there are top passing offenses and top rushing offenses, right? I think with the Cowboys, they're gonna throw a lot.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
with Indy, probably less so. Like they're probably gonna throw a lot less. They're probably gonna run the ball a lot more, and so. With that, it makes sense. You don't want to have your third option from the Colts, but with a team like Dallas, I think it is feasible. But yeah, I'm a little iffy on the talent of Gallup. I'm not entirely sure, even if he was given those opportunities, that he would really do very well. That's kind of where I'm at. So,
I
um,
mean, we have evidence though from last year, like his first like 6 games before Dak got hurt were pretty good.
oh, were they? I completely forgot. So I could be wrong. Um, but uh, but yeah, I mean, he looked good yesterday. So
Yeah.
for at least the time when he was healthy, it was a great pickup. But now it's looking like, unfortunately,
Yep, looks
not
like
good.
less.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is just luck. But any case, another pickup that I wanted to talk about was the $9 Le'Veon Bell, which really stood out to me. But I'll let one of you guys start with your thoughts on Bell.
So I think that the situation here is that this is a player Virginia wanted, and they had the fab to spend. They came into the season with I think $115 in fab, uh, and so basically their mindset was likely, I want the best player on waivers. I don't want to get a dead cap if I have to cut him. So I'm gonna bid $9, and it doesn't, $9 doesn't mean much difference to Virginia versus 5 or 3 at this point in the season.
Okay. Yeah. So they have a lot of fab. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because they made a lot of trades, in the off season to
Evaluate
acquire fab.
evaluate the pickup outside of
Let
the
me see.
the
Oh
the,
my God, they
the
do have
fab
money.
circumstances.
Okay.
What do you think?
Outside of the fab, I think Le'Veon Bell stinks.
Okay.
I,
That's the opinion I
Yeah,
wanted.
there. Me too. We can move on after that, actually. But
I mean I get it.
yeah,
Like Diaz said, I get the circumstances of it.
same,
I'm
same.
just
Yeah,
not very convinced that a guy that hasn't been good in like 3 years now, or maybe 2.5 years, or whatever
yeah.
it
Two and a
is, like,
half. Yeah.
and hasn't been good in a system other than Pittsburgh. I'm not completely convinced that he's just going to come in and, you know, be worth anything. And I think them picking up Latavius and Devontae Freeman like the second after kind of shows that they don't really see Bell as much more than like a guy that they'll try out and see if he picks up the system and, has a little bit more juice than a lot of people think. But yeah, I mean, I get why the $9 bid. You don't want to guarantee money on a guy that you like, and he probably saw this as the highest upside pickup at the time,
Mm-hmm.
based on the information we had. So I get it. I just don't think Le'Veon Bell has very much juice left.
Yep.
he
Pretty
last
much agree.
season in Kansas City, he was playing behind Darrell Williams. He was their third
Yeah,
running
yeah,
back, and
yeah.
Yikes. Um, let's move on.
Darrell Williams went for $9 in the first waiver period of last year too. So
Yeah.
that's not necessarily a slight. Not necessarily a slight
Who
against
did that? Man. What a.
Le'Veon Bell. Like,
Yeah, that's true.
he was behind a $9 guy. He might have been the same $9 guy.
yeah,
So
I think that you just got to take the name away and say this is a player that
True.
is less talented than Jag Williams.
Yep. Yep. You gotta
True,
forget
true.
about all of the many times that he was a number one pick or whatever, right? Like he was a fantasy superstar, but in 2021 he no longer is, and it's just yeah, those days are long gone. I thought another pickup that was really interesting in terms of the running backs was Justin Jackson for $1 for Capital Region. So this is with some of the news that Eckler could be hurt, could be dealing with a hamstring injury, which could last, right? You don't know if it's going to be a 1 week thing or, maybe it's not even a 1 week thing. But in any case, a very smart pickup, I thought, by Ken here to have someone, the backup for that position. Any thoughts there?
I wonder what is he the for sure backup? What happened to Josh Kelly? Is Josh Kelly just
Yeah, I don't know. That's also a good point, though.
beyond that? It's smart because I think he put him in his practice squad, which he's only eligible for I think 4 more games or 5 more games or 6 more games or something like that. But yeah, this isn't a long-term thing. This is just basically
Right.
probably a 1 week play to see if Eckler looks healthy. If Eckler, suffers a re-injury or something, then that's totally worth it. If not, I'm sure he's gonna drop him and pick up a different piece that has more upside than Justin Jackson if Eckler is healthy. So really, really good pickup for the 1 or 2 weeks to make sure Eckler is healthy. And I'm sure there's nothing preventing him from cutting him before he has to make a decision on his practice squad eligibility. So I do think he will go back, but also very, very smart move to bring him in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I forgot about Larry Roundtree, who, of course,
Also Roundtree. Yeah.
the text messages from
Yeah.
Mysterious John has mentioned this guy. But yeah, we don't know. We don't know for sure that Justin Jackson is the backup. That's very
how
true.
John wins all those other leagues. He strong arms people for fucking Khalil Roundtree.
Oh man. Um, any other free agent waiver wire pickups that looked interesting to you guys? Um, I
Yeah, I
mean,
like Jawan Johnson.
yeah, I was
I
about to
think,
ask.
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
the tight end eligibility.
Yep.
And yeah, we have no idea really what this pass distribution is going to look like in New Orleans. Kamara's going to get his, but beyond that, it's anyone's game. So that's a lot of upside. I think a perfect example of the player you add week one and see what happens week one, and you're going to know right away, is this a player who I can hold on to long term, or is he not really going to pan out?
Yep, definitely. Did you have advice for Matt to do this,
Yeah,
Dustin?
I like Juwan Johnson a lot. Like, yeah, I mean, I get what Diaz is saying about like, the Paris Campbell type of play where you don't know what the distribution is going to be like. So like, I
Right,
definitely get that.
right.
Like I'm not saying that that isn't a good line of thought. And I think Juwan Johnson is that type of guy. I know, not a factor for Harlem, but a lot of teams have some questionable tight end situations. I think probably Drake Kills. Logan Thomas isn't like, a for sure, top five tight end or anything. So
Wow, how dare you?
having an option, having an option that could break out just because we didn't really know how um, the pecking order was going to shake out. This is I think a guy that could be that kind of guy. And yeah, I really like that pickup. Think that's the type of thing that could either have trade value or even keeper value. I know Darren Waller was a guy that actually me and Matt picked up a couple years ago when he broke out.
Ah,
Um, right before he broke out, we were like, "Yeah, we don't know if this guy's any good, but he might be." And if he is, then like a tight end at that price is going to be pretty sweet. So we actually did end up getting Darren Waller and enjoyed his breakout season. So hopefully, it'd be nice if the same thing happens here for Great Kills.
yeah, that would be sweet. For great kills, maybe not for the rest of the league. Um, I will say, speaking of tight ends, it kind of sucked to see Rob Gronkowski go for a lot of touchdowns. Who, of course, is
Yeah, someone should have. Did anyone have nobody in this group probably had a claim on him, but I wonder if anybody in the league at all like even had him on low down on their list. I know tight end is is really shallow, or yeah, really shallow, and there's some questionable names like that people are going to be starting every week. I
yeah.
think Gronk could have some. He's kind of like Mike Evans, but at tight end. Like he's probably going to get you like 2 or 3 points like a lot of weeks. But when Gronk goes off for 2 touchdowns, that's probably going to win you the week because most other teams can't match that kind of tight end output.
Right.
So yeah, it'll be frustrating. But I mean, if you're starting like kind of a no name tight end anyway, yeah, I kind of would rather have the 2 points every week that turns into like 20 points every now and then instead of the steady like 6 points every week. Like 6 points a week, great, but like it's probably not affecting your matchup too often.
Right.
Whereas Gronk can, yeah, basically you're thinking on the Mike Evans. If the rest of your roster is stable enough, I think Gronk, regardless of what his per game average or his uh, season end finish is, like I
Mm-hmm.
think he could be usable for people, especially during bye weeks and once
Absolutely.
once tight ends are going too thin. So yeah, that was very fun to see.
Yeah, definitely pretty cool to see that again. He looked really good. I always forget. Like I always think he's like 40, but he's not. He's like
Yeah,
still
he's
early
actually
30s.
he's actually not. He's only like half a year older than Kelsey.
Right,
I
right. It's
mean,
so dumb. I
and
always think
he's
he's like
he's played
37.
less seasons because he's retired for like 2 seasons. He's probably played more playoff games, but like, yeah, if you think Gronk is ancient and Kelsey is like prime aged, like you're yeah, that's definitely something I have trouble with. I keep thinking like, oh, Gronk must be like 36 or something, right? And I look and he's like, oh, 32.
Yeah,
That's not even that old.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, he looked good yesterday, man. He
Hmm.
looked like, I mean, he's not fast at all anymore, but he can still do Gronk things where he just one of the best at boxing out smaller defenders. Like, and Tom Brady likes Gronk. He's gonna keep him relevant enough where I think he'll be a usable tight end for sure.
Absolutely. We're pumping up the Gronk value. Someone's gonna go 20.
Damn,
I don't know.
yo, Gronk is our age, born in '89.
I know. That's what I'm saying. That's what,
Yeah,
every time I look at that, I'm like, what? Because I keep thinking
that's
he's like,
crazy.
yeah, way older for some reason, but he's not. It's because of the fact that the retiring and yeah,
Yeah,
it's all of that stuff. But
it feels like he's been around for Tom Brady's whole career, even though that's like not
right,
even close to true.
right,
I just assumed that he's like 4 years younger than Tom Brady, but yeah, he's like like
way younger.
10
Yeah,
years, yeah, 8 years younger or something. Yeah.
right. Yeah, that was a sorry, that was a Gronk tangent. But yeah, any other waiver wire things here? I think just briefly, Jay seems like he understands his roster and what his needs are. So shoring up the wide receiver position, I think he's done that with a couple cheap pickups. So that's great for him. And then Oakland making he made a pickup of Ty Johnson that may or may not should have happened, right? But anyways, also Darrington Evans as a nice handcuff for that Tennessee situation. But any comments, thoughts on that, Diaz?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
All right, go ahead. You nailed it.
The last guy I do want to talk about shortly is Kadarius Toney. He probably isn't anything, but it is always a little bit more exciting to pick up a rookie, like more than like, for example, Gallup or anyone else that has some tape in the NFL. Like there's always a chance that this guy kind of slipped through the cracks of fantasy experts or people that think they know what they're talking about in terms of talent. Like, and I think he's like talented anyway. I'm sure the bigger concern is like he's coming off of injury, and who knows how good Daniel Jones is, and that offense has a bunch of other names that are probably ahead of him. But like Tony is a guy that's talented, and I think he could emerge at some point in the season. Yeah, so that's probably the most like interesting under the radar pickup that I saw.
Diaz, you even rostered Kadarius Toney for a little bit.
Yeah, that was Diaz's car, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's got first round draft pedigree.
Right.
Yeah.
He played in the SEC against great competition, so he missed so much of training camp that it's hard to imagine him breaking out within the first quarter of the season. But certainly, there are names ahead of him, but all those guys have flaws. So if he can assert himself as the alpha, he's one of the most talented probably players in that receiving core. So if he picks up the playbook, he can certainly break out.
Specifically, what I found like interesting about this is Yonkers actually drafted T. Higgins in the second round last year, and cut him due to similar circumstances. I think wasn't contributing early in the season. I think he did have a preseason injury too. And then Great Kills, we picked him up last year before he had done anything, but just based on decent draft pedigree, decent talent, could be the guy eventually, and that did pan out. So it's interesting that Yonkers, I don't know if they like picked up anything, but if based on what happened with T, like maybe their strategy was like, oh, like let's not overlook a guy just because he's not ready to contribute in the first few weeks. If you have the roster room to pick up a guy of that draft pedigree and talent, like if you can hold him, nice to hold him. I know the thing is like some teams can't afford to hold him, which I'm sure was the case for Harlem, just because different guys that you need to roster, different guys that you need to contribute maybe earlier and stuff. But every team has different circumstances, so I think it's always going to be interesting to see like these kind of guys get picked up and see if they break out eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I do see what you're saying, Dustin, and definitely there are parallels with the two scenarios. I just think with Kadarius Toney, it's not going to happen.
Not going to happen. I mean, the biggest difference is Daniel Jones is not looking like a guy, like Joe Burrow is quite different from I think what a Daniel Jones is. So
plus Tony
I'm not saying it's going to be
anyways,
the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it's the same thing. I'm just saying it's interesting how
definitely
it kind of happened. It happened to Yonkers, and then like we're seeing maybe kind of like the opposite end of it, like seeing them picking up a guy just based on pure speculative reasons, right? There's no reason to think Tony's going to be startable this week, next week, or anytime soon. But all the same, he did pick him up, so I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, as Diaz mentioned, he does have first round pedigree, so there is that. But then again, a lot of players have first round pedigree that didn't end up doing anything. So the the John Rosses of the world, right? So
For sure, yeah,
it
for
can
sure.
happen. I'm not guaranteeing it for Tony, but I just don't see it for him. There's a reason why he has fallen in the rookie draft, and I think as Diaz was mentioning, why he cut him, but even still, it is going to be tough to for him in his situation of the Giants offense. So, maybe if he was in a better offense, I think he could have been better. Plus, I question a little bit of his off the field stuff. But anyways, it's just a $1 pickup that Jay's taking a flyer. No need to go too deep.
Yeah, I
on
mean,
it.
he could be dropped next week.
Yeah,
and I'm not
he's
saying I
probably
would be
will.
surprised.
Right.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
but I am saying it's interesting just
Yeah.
because of
Yeah.
the specific thing that happened last year with him. Yeah.
Absolutely. Anything else you guys want to cover? Week 1 pre-draft. Anything else that comes to mind? Don't think.
I would love to break down every team, but I gotta go walk my dog. As you're now a fellow dog owner,
No.
so you know how
Yeah.
that is.
Yeah. I need to go
Yeah.
do that too soon. With our puppy. He probably needs to go potty soon. But yeah. It was a blast having you on. I think we'll get to the other teams as we bring on more people.
Let's do a quick prediction of
Oh, sure.
who
Yeah.
you think the Hunter Bowl is going to be.
Yeah.
Not
Actually, great call.
excluding your own teams. Actually, don't exclude your own teams. You can add in your own teams if you want.
Yeah. Do you want to start? I mean, I don't. Dustin, you start because I have to think about it really quick.
You have to think about it real quick.
Yeah.
I predicted Hua's last year. I just want to say on the first show, I did
Okay.
say it is going to be Hua's.
That's right.
So
You did. That's right.
I'm on a hot streak. I think I might be able to peg it again.
Okay. Okay.
I think it's going to be Harlem versus Capital Region.
Ooh.
That's my pick. I think we got a streak of rookie running back, rookie first overall picks making the Hunter Bowl. I think that's going to continue. Just seems like there's a little bit of a pattern or some like juju behind it, and I think Capital Region is due. I think they're due for some luck to fall their way. I think their process has gotten a little bit better over the last couple of years. I think they did make a mistake last year, but overall, I think I saw a lot of strategies and activity from that team that maybe wasn't always there. And I think overall they came out of last year a better owner, and I think we're gonna see it happen here this year.
That would be a fantastic storyline if Capital Region could go back to the playoffs and then into the finals and have a chance at the long-awaited first championship for Capital Region, and then for Harlem hasn't been there for a while, right? So I think would continue the kind of the historic legacy of that first overall pick in the rookie draft. That would be really cool to see as well. Diaz, if you're ready, you can go. But
Sure, yeah, I was going to pick Ken too. I mean,
Okay.
he's got such a great team, but I'll go against the grain. Let's say we started the season with John facing Hua, so that'll be the finals. I'll say Mars beats Virginia in the finals.
Mars beats
That would be
Virginia.
a lot. Oh, that would turn the league on its head too. Just Mars getting to 2 first, specifically beating Hua, just like we saw him beat him in basketball. Scoreline, hopefully a little bit closer if they do meet in a potential Hunter Bowl. Would be really embarrassing if he got blown out like 700 to 100 or something. But that would be really fun. I think. I think it's always great when maybe not for the loser, but it's always great when I think Mars and John are winning. You hate to see it, but you also kind of like love that it's the engagement factor that it has, the way it makes certain teams feel. I think that would be a lot of fun. So yeah, I mean if that happens, I'm all for it.
Yeah, so I'm going to pick 2 teams that haven't been mentioned yet. So LIC is definitely one of the strongest teams in the league. I think LIC makes it to the finals. yet again this year. They we'll talk about their team in detail later, but I think they have a really, really strong, top end of their starting lineup. So that's going to carry them all the way. And then on the other side is going to be Flushing. I got Flushing wrong in my power rankings, I think, already with Tom Brady looking so good. I think Tom Brady and Kyler Murray, that QB tandem is one of the strongest in the league. I think they have really good talent. The Gus Edwards news kind of sucks, but I think they're going to make a really long, surprising run in the playoffs and compete in the championship. As for
True. It's
yeah,
yeah. No, go finish. Sorry, I thought you were done. Sorry.
the winner, man, I don't know. I'll just say Flushing. I'll just put Flushing on top, just so because I guess it's more of a
Love it.
sentimentality to see them winning their first championship. That would be great.
Yeah.
To finish, but that's my prediction.
Yeah, everyone always mentions Capital Region as the long suffering team that we'd love to see him win one, but I think Flushing is kind of overlooked for what could be the same narrative for them.
Yeah.
Definitely has had some rough years and definitely had some exciting years. With Kyler Murray as their centerpiece, there's some parallels for sure. And yeah, it'd be really good to see them win too. And I did co-own baseball with them, and I do think he's come a long way in terms of how he's thinking about values and what's worth it and strategies and stuff. And I think that he's peaking at the right time with a pretty good roster. It just does hurt that Gus Edwards happening right away off the bat. That's one of his keepers. That does suck, but I could see it. He definitely has some pieces that I think are really really exciting, and we'll cover them when we get a chance. But narrative wise, that would be a lot of fun too, I think so.
Yeah, it's really awesome that we've named 6 different teams to
Yeah.
make the final. So I think that just speaks to, again, how close all of our teams are to each other. I think it's going to be a very close competitive year. So that's, again, no slight to the 4 teams that weren't named. It's fine. Again, very close in the standings, I think, and should be really, really exciting. Looking forward to it so much for this Sunday. Cannot wait. Again, I mean, yesterday was great to start the season like that, but I need more. So with that, I think we're all good here. Let's thank you again, Diaz, and then let's do this again. Probably sometime later this season.
Sounds good.
Good luck. Good luck to everyone this season. I'm really interested to see how it pans out.
Any closing thoughts, Diaz?
See you on Sunday.
Cool.
Yep.
All right, guys.